A tall metal pole or stand extends vertically against a plain gray wall, with a curved top end visible at the upper portion of the frame.
They're gone, and we're covered, still standing there. And that's what I had in my hand. So I took my saw and I cut that fence post in half, and I looked inside. I need a solid piece of wood, as we need a solid heart in all of us. And I took my tools and I carved between those nail holes. And I placed those two pieces back together and I shaped it. And I started thinking, this is much like our elders. Because when they got old, they throw them away. They put them away today in homes and different things. In our way, we take our elders into our homes and we keep them there to help with the children as the mother and father work. How many of you grandfathers and grandmothers have talked to your grandchildren and told them about the life here in America when you were young? Told them about the time of Lewis and Clark. Told them about the time of the Pilgrims, because it was my people, the Native Americans as we're called, who greeted those first pilgrims with our hands held high. And they did not understand us. And they took their sticks of fire and thunder and they scared us away. And we watched from the rocks and the trees of that first year as they walked over the food and the medicine that could give them strength and heal them. We listened to them as they cried through the winter and their children died. And we saw them lay the bodies in the snow. We thought, if we can just be their friends. But they saw someone who was different. They saw someone who spoke differently. They saw someone different. And so we watched from the trees. And in the spring, as they buried their dead once again, it was our children who went forward, and it was a young woman who came out and said, "My name is Pocahontas." And she greeted those men. And Pocahontas was not the little girl you see, the young woman you see on the movie. And Captain Smith was not that handsome young man. You cannot always believe what was written, but we believe what we have been told, because our words have been true and passed down. She was a little girl, and he was an old man, and they had respect for one another. And today that little boat never sank. Today that little boat flies through the air. Today that boat is made of iron and steel. Sometimes that little boat is an inner tube coming here. And it's you, the new Native Americans, who must greet them. From Chechnya and Bosnia, from the Middle East now, from China. And it's up to you to greet them, to show them the way of this land, to share with them the things that we have always shared with one another. We had popcorn before Orville Redenbacher ever got here. And we like to share that thing, this thing called food and this thing called medicine, called friendship. Because as long as we look inside and we see what's familiar, it does not matter what you look like on the outside.
A person stands alone against a plain wall wearing a tan and red fringed garment with a beaded vest and a feathered headpiece. They hold what appears to be a decorated object in their hands.
But we learn from our elders how to be. And what are you teaching your children? Are you teaching your children how to point a finger and see what's different? Or are you teaching your children to open a hand and to feel what's the same? Because you know hunger, and you know death, you know laughter, and you know pain. But we all need each other. To be a Native American is an honor. People are dying to come here to be what you have, so their children can have what you were given. And these things were shared by the people who lived here. We call ourselves Nueta, the people. We call ourselves in the Southwest Dene, the people. We call ourselves a part of this land. And we have always welcomed those from different places, because you have new songs and you have new things. And it's the warriors, those who have gone out in respect and honor, as I stand here in a warrior shirt. I have done things humbly for my friends and my relatives, and they have given me the right to stand here under this feather, dressed as I am, named as I am. Because as you hear these stories and you hear these words, you've heard them before. I'm just a new way to see them. But if you feel these words, you will feel your grandmothers and your grandfathers. And if you listen to this song, maybe you will find that warrior spirit within you also. And this song is for us as Native Americans.
person stands against a plain gray wall wearing a tan and cream-colored fringed garment with a red sash and a feathered headdress. They hold a long object in their hands and gaze downward.
At home, I live in a place called Dragswolf Village. And Dragswolf Village is built in a place where my grandmother, my mother's mother, lived. I rode horseback over those hills and I dug turnip in those hills and I picked mint down by the river to make tea. And my grandmother sang good songs and had a beautiful garden. She told me that someday when I was a man I might be able to find a good woman, and I've been fortunate. But like I said, I had to make sure that we weren't related, because my father is a Dakota Sioux from Montana, but he has relatives on Standing Rock. My wife is from Cheyenne River on the Standing Rock Reservation. And so I had to talk to her mother and her uncles. Are you related to, and do you know so-and-so? Well, how about this one? Do you know that one? And we're not related. So I have a very beautiful wife. And she is who I think about when I travel down the road. And so as I come home from journeys, long journeys, short journeys, I sing songs.
A person wearing a tan leather outfit with fringe, a red vest, and a feathered headpiece stands against a plain gray wall, holding a wooden staff or pipe and looking to the side.
She is one of those songs in my heart. And so I made this song for my wife. Her name is Nape Washtewi. It's Good Hand Woman. She's one of the best quill workers, porcupine quill workers in this country. She was asked to reproduce some of the things that you will see there in Monticello. Leggings of the man and moccasins of the man. And I'm very honored that she has given me a good life. I'm very honored that I can find this song that she put there and share it with you today. And so this song is called When I Come Home. ya, wareya, oh, ha, ya, hero. I'm coming home, ha, ya, hero. When I get there, I hope that you'll be waiting for me, honey. Wait, ya, hero, oh, wait, ya, oh, ha, ya, hero. When I get home, we'll be singing, we'll be dancing, we'll make love all night long. Wait a ya, hey da, ya hey da, oh ha ya hey do. When I get home, we'll be singing, we'll be dancing, we'll make love all night long. Wait a ya, hey da, oh, wait a ya, oh ha ya hey do. Nape washte we, don't you know that I love you, ah ya hey do. Good hand woman, don't you know that I love you, ah ya hey do.
A person wearing a tan and red fringed garment and a feathered headpiece stands at a microphone against a plain gray wall, looking toward the side.
This flute was given to me by a gentleman who writes a magazine, and I was very humbled, and I took it as a challenge because I have a hard time playing one flute and this is three. But it's a lot like us as human beings, because like myself, I like to talk, and we all have a friend who likes to talk, and that's what this one does. We have a friend or somebody who always just nods our head and takes us in stride. They're just one monotone thing there. Then we have somebody who's always kind of like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh, you know, they just kind of make one or two noises, and whether we like it or not, they'll agree with us. And that's what friends are about, and that's what this country is about, and that's what this whole Lewis and Clark journey was about. Because when those men came up the river, we never expected them. Like tourists, some of them were lost. Following the first tourist, he was lost. You remember that guy, Columbus? He was looking for another place where they have elephants. Didn't stop and ask directions. And he said, look what I found. When we landed in the airplane on Monday, look what I found, Richmond, oh. Yeah, you guys are going to have to move. I'm going to bring my relatives out here. But you know, when we learned, those men had men with them who were half black and half white. They had one who was all black. They had some who were half black and half Indian and half white. And we thought they were all half crazy coming up that river. And they spent the winter with us. And they took out their sticks and they rubbed them together and they made the dogs cry. And they made them jump around too. And they said it was dancing. Didn't look like much dancing, but then that's how rock and roll is too. It doesn't look like much, it doesn't sound like much.
A person stands against a plain gray wall wearing a tan fringed garment with a red and yellow vest over it. They wear a feathered headpiece and hold what appears to be a long stick or staff in their hands.
Makes me cry, and, yeah. But that's what they said about the Beatles and Elvis Presley too, wasn't it? See, music comes from the heart. And those young men, they gave their hearts to Lewis and Clark. Men that they trusted. Warriors. Trusted by our leader of our country, who was your country then, coming into our country. And we welcomed them with our hands open. And they slept with us and they ate with us and we gave them food and medicine and directions. because they asked. And so they went there on a great journey. When they came back, our young sister, a girl that we had stolen, not to make her a slave, but to make her keep our blood clean. And that girl was Sacagawea. She lived in the lodge of Chief Bullseye, and Bullseye is a clan relative of mine. So I have that small claim to her as a relative, Sacagawea. And so, like those men and that woman, when they came back, they talked about things we had never seen. She said, in the summer, she said, I walked through the hills and there was snow there. I said, oh yeah? She said, I came to a river with no other side. I said, really? She said, I even walked inside a fish. The first fish story we ever heard must have come from one of them white guys, you know. But she saw mountains, and she saw an ocean, and she walked inside of a whale. And she came home and told us these things, and they took her back here to the east, and then she came home again. She said there were lodges with lodges on top, and they had stars on the walls to give them light. And we said, boy, those people must have some strange medicine. She said she saw lodges moving on wheels, and we thought she was crazy. But she was very respectful, and she worked in harmony with those men. And that's what we have to do. We have to believe in our leaders. We have to believe in those that we choose. We have to give our children the strength and the confidence to go out there and to face the unknown. Because the unknown is out there now. Sometimes it's just around the corner. What do you know about your neighbors? And what do you know about your own families? I can trace my family 8 greats back, and I know who I am. I can show you where we lived and where we died. Your people came from across the water. What did they do over there? Where did they eat over there? And why did they come here? Are you thankful? Because it's up to you now to greet those who are lost and hurt, looking for a new home. And when they come here, we as the new Native Americans must greet them and teach them how to live in harmony with the earth, with the
A person wearing a tan and red decorated outfit with fringe and a feathered headdress stands against a plain gray background, gesturing while speaking.
land, the sky, and the water. Because if we don't respect these things, how can we feed our children? We must learn how to live in harmony. And so this last song I want to give you is what I call Walking in Harmony. And I want to say, Mazigiras, thank you very much for being here, taking time out of your life to come here and to share what was shared in this country 200 years ago, a dream. And I hope that when you leave here, you will be a part of my reflection, the Northern Lights, because the words that I have given you are only a reflection of my family, my clan, my tribe. Next week when I stand in Switzerland, I will be representing you. And so I hope that I do a good job. And I hope that we can learn how to live and walk in harmony.
A person stands on a plain stage wearing a tan and red fringed outfit with a feathered headpiece. They hold what appears to be a long pipe or staff in their hands while facing toward the left side of the frame.
Mr. Keith Baird, thank you so much. And now we do have
A person in a gray shirt stands at a wooden podium with a microphone in an indoor setting. A red banner and decorative elements are visible in the background.
a Corps of Engineers, Lower Connecticut River Basin Office at Tully Lake in Royalston. He is the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial Coordinator for New England also. Now, we wish to take you back. The time is October 20th, 1803. Earlier this year, the size of the territory of the United States doubled with the purchase of the Louisiana Territory from Napoleon. Ohio has just become the 17th state. Thomas Jefferson of Virginia has been president for 2.5 years. He and many of the 5 million Americans who are burning with curiosity as to what wonders lie west of the Mississippi River. You have come to hear a representative of the U.S. Army who is recruiting men for an important but dangerous mission into these new lands. Private Abner Davis, 1st Infantry Regiment, will explain the qualifications and some of the plans for the Corps of Volunteers of the Northwestern Discovery. Please welcome from Kaskaskia in the Indiana Territory, Private Abner Davis.
A person in a red shirt stands at a wooden podium on a small stage. Behind them is a large black plaque with white text listing various government agencies and departments. The setting appears to be indoors.
Well, thank you, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I have here a broadside in my papers, which I thought I had pulled out earlier. I don't see it now, so we'll have to go by memory. Here it is. Now seeking, young men seeking adventure, must be strong and healthy for arduous expedition. The United States Army is looking for young men of good character, exceptional fortitude, and possessing a variety of useful skills to accompany Captain M. Lewis, U.S. Infantry, on a voyage of discovery to find the Northwest Passage between the Missouri River and the Oregon country. Get to some of the other skills and qualifications later. But how many out there are interested perhaps in joining the Army to join this Corps of Discovery? Are there any potential volunteers? Very good. A few of you. You have? You're wearing a funny uniform, sir.
I think I'm in another division.
Another division. I'll have to get back with you. Okay, of those of you who are interested, are any of you gentlemen's sons? Are you a gentleman's son, sir?
No, sir, I'm a common.
Back here, are you a gentleman's son? There's a no. Okay, is anybody here a gentleman's son? Sorry, you're not qualified. We could have used you as an interpreter, too. The captain has instructed that no gentlemen's sons would be allowed along because they're not used to labor, hard labor. So we will leave them behind in Virginia. Let me think now. What other qualifications would there be? We're seeking exceptional fortitude, hard labor. I bet you're wondering what the remuneration will be. Is this true? Back there? Yes. Usually that's one of the first questions. What's the pay? Well, as a private, such as I, you earn the princely sum of $5 a month. The sergeant, he gets $15 a month, the corporal $10, but we lowly privates get $5 a month. However, Captain Lewis has indicated that there will be double pay for those successfully completing this mission when they return. So double pay. Also, you get a clothing allowance. You get a uniform just like mine. One uniform for every year you're enlisted in the service. So when you're in for 4 years, you have 4 sets of clothes, or you have the remains of 4 sets of clothes because they wear out in that time. But you get clothing. Also,
A person wearing a red jacket and white pants stands on a stage. Behind them is a black banner listing various U.S. government departments and agencies. Papers and documents are visible on the stage surface.
So, of course, food, board, whatever you can shoot, and you get to sleep in a tent, or in more, what would be the word? Better quarters during the winter than a tent. All right, let's see. I have here in my notes some of the captain's other qualifications. And remuneration. Oh, I forgot one of the most important parts of the remuneration. Of course, should you die in service, your next of kin will be notified and you'll get a proper funeral. I'm sure that'll make everyone happy. The best part, besides the funeral, of course, is the President has indicated to Captain Lewis that those who volunteer and complete this mission should receive a land grant that will be equal to the land grant of the volunteers from the late war. So that will be in the new territories. So that's a very good inducement to come in. I'll get back to qualifications here. The captains have indicated they want to reject the weak, ignorant, and unmanageable for the strong, the skillful, and eager volunteers. Back here, are you still an eager volunteer? Who are the volunteers back there? This seems to be a bright sun coming through over here. Changed your mind for $5 a month. But it's double pay, sir. You'll get 10 if you should live. Yes, there. Can you come up, please? What's your name? Edward. Edward. You say you're not a gentleman's son. You're still eager to go on this expedition. Very good. Let's see. Do you have any special skills? Well, are you a good hunter? Kind of. You're either good or you're kind of. How about a good woodsman? Not sure. What's that? You can throw a hatchet? You're good with the tomahawk? Well, perhaps that's an indication that you'd be a good hunter, a good woodsman. We might sign you up. How old are you? 11. That's you're supposed to lie when you want to get into the Army. So you might be a little bit young, but we'll see what we can do. Let's see. So what part of being a recruit do you like the best? Do you have any other special skills?
Two people stand facing each other on a stage. One wears a blue and yellow vest over a dark shirt, the other wears a red jacket. Behind them is a black banner listing various U.S. government departments and agencies. A projector screen is visible in the background.
Can you write? That's a special skill. You can write. Why would we want you to be able to write? Most men in the Army aren't very good at writing. Make a log. You mean those things that you're using your tomahawk on to chop up? Oh, a journal. Yes. So you can write a journal. In fact, as probably everybody in here knows, it's supposed to be a secret mission, but I found in this town everybody already knows about this secret mission. The president has instructed that a journal, a log, as you say, of what they find on this core of discovery should be kept. So you can help do that? All right. Do you know anybody else back there who's maybe shy who wants to be a recruit? All right. Well, thank you for coming up. Any other special skills out there that might be useful for this expedition? You, sir, look like you might be an outdoorsman. Do you have any other skills? You can make things out of wood, iron. Make knives. Do you possess blacksmith skills by chance? Now that is a valuable skill, blacksmith. So we would need blacksmiths on this expedition. Any carpenters out there? No carpenters. Any lawyers? That's good. We don't need any of those. Yes. See, somehow I knew that when you said you could make things, if we were a little more specific, we'd find out. So we need artificers or blacksmiths. We need carpenters. Any fishermen out there? We probably need a good fisherman. Yes. I knew there was somebody else back there just dying to enlist in this expedition. Let me think now. So any other skills? Anybody can think of another skill we'll need for this expedition? We can't expect every man to do everything, so we're going to have to find people with special qualifications to join the expedition. What's that? Health. Health and medicine. Actually, I believe Captain Lewis will be doing that himself because he's an herbalist. That's true. I hope he thinks of that, but the president has sent him this past year to Philadelphia to study with Dr. Benjamin Rush. Have you heard of Dr. Benjamin Rush? He's a very famous doctor in Philadelphia, and Captain Lewis has learned some medicine from him. One reason I'm not going is because I've heard of Dr. Rush's thunder pills, so I think it's time for me to leave the Army rather than to take that.
A person in a red and dark jacket stands at a table displaying a black banner listing multiple U.S. government departments and agencies. A presentation screen is visible in the background.
That treatment, but so we have medicine. Any other skills that you can think of? Cooking. This is the Army. Why would anyone want to know how to cook? I've wondered that myself. It would be nice if we had some good cooks out on the frontier in these Army units. Anything else? Boat building and just being able to operate a boat. Boatsmen. This is a good qualification. If we can't find enough men with this qualification to enlist in the Army, I believe the captains will sign some engagés to go along when they're in the St. Louis area. Yes, sir. Sewing is a very good skill. It would be nice if there was a tailor along also to repair the uniforms and make new uniforms as these wear out, as they're short to do on an expedition that's expected to last maybe 2 years, give or take. So sewing, anything else anyone can think of? How about you? Would you be interested in volunteering? Have you any special skills that would be useful? Paddle also. Do you ride a horse? Somehow I knew that you would be a good horseman. So we need horsemen as well as all these other skills she mentioned. So did I say she? You wouldn't be qualified then. But anyway, you would be otherwise well qualified. Anyone here married? If you're married, I'm sorry, the captains will not take any married people along. They want single men so that they'll work harder and not be too distracted by what they're leaving behind. Yes? Musicians. This person up here is wondering if perhaps we should bring some musicians along, and I believe that's a good idea. I'm only a lowly private, but I believe the captains are thinking along those lines. It's perhaps possible that some of the engagés, these Frenchmen in the St. Louis area, I bet there's some musicians amongst them. Plus a lot of men in the forts, like Fort Massac, Kaskaskia, they also have, well, I don't want to say talent, but they do like music, small instruments and singing and dancing and so forth. Be nice if there were some better musicians along. Let me back up for a minute. Does everyone know the reason that the president is sending this expedition out there?
A person in a red shirt and dark vest stands at a table displaying a black banner listing multiple U.S. government departments and agencies. Papers and materials are scattered on the table surface.
Is there any question about that? Of course, as I said, it is a secret mission, so I can't tell you too much or I'd have to kill you. But the president does send this expedition out, and it's to be a diplomatic mission to meet the Indians. So it'd be good to have translators. It's also to be a scientific expedition, so we want men who have a curious mind. It's to be a discovery mission, so mapping, surveying are good skills to have. Anybody think of anything else? I'll look on this broadside here and see if there's anything else the captains have written. Recruits are sought with previous military training. That's always good. This is an Army expedition after all. Curiosity and one or more of the following skills: artificer, blacksmith, boatsman, carpenter, cook, fisherman, gunsmith. Did I mention gunsmith? It would be good to have a gunsmith along. Perhaps I'll talk about the guns here in a moment. Herbalist, horseman, hunters, surveyors, tailor, trapper, and writing skills. I think we hit most of them. Duration: the expedition is expected to last 2 years, commencing in the spring of this coming spring, 1804. And if you are interested, you can see me later, or you can apply directly to Captain Lewis at Camp Dubois for an examination. I thought I'd mention the firearm. This is, you'll have to, if you're not already familiar with it, you'll have to learn to use it. I'm not a very good soldier, so I won't go through the drill, but this is a 1794 contract rifle, but Captain Lewis has had special modifications made at Harper's Ferry to the lock. This is the latest technology, this Harper's Ferry lock, and they're interchangeable so that if one breaks, they can take the parts out of another one to fix it rather than having to each individually be worked on. It's from Harper's Ferry. Yes, it's something that Captain Lewis has worked out with the superintendent of the Harper's Ferry Arsenal in Virginia. But it's a 1794 trade contract rifle. It might be. It would be rifled. Are there any questions from any of the potential recruits or the families of the potential recruits? Because the family members are always very curious of what their sons are getting into before they leave. Are there any questions? Yes? An artificer. An artificer is a
person wearing a red shirt and white pants stands at a table displaying a banner listing various U.S. government departments and agencies. A presentation screen is visible in the background.
A member of the military with a special skill in blacksmithing. And now I will step out of character, if you don't mind, so I can answer that a little better. Artificer, from my reading, is similar to a modern warrant officer. There was a couple of blacksmiths along on the expedition, and Willard was termed as an artificer, but for the purpose of the expedition, he was treated just as a private. So must have made the paper trail easier or something, but artificer was another word for a blacksmith, and they were special qualification. Willard was a member of the Artillery Corps. He was the only member of the Artillery Corps besides Captain Clark himself who went all the way to the Pacific and back. There were several on the return journey from the Artillery Corps, and I'm wearing the uniform of the infantry. Most of the members were enlisted from the infantry. When you see the guys in uniforms around here, if they're proper, or the pictures on the wall outside, you can tell the difference because the infantry has white metal, the officers would have silver buttons, and we enlisted men would have pewter, and the Artillery Corps would have yellow metal, brass or gold trim and buttons. So, any other questions? I like answering questions rather than just being up here and talking, because it's more fun for me and I think more fun for you. Any questions back there from my potential recruits? Yes? Do I always dress like this? Oh, want me to go back into character? No, okay. This was an Army expedition, and they dressed in Army uniforms. This is what they had. In fact, there was a big problem in the Army in those days of desertion. So they made sure when they came into the Army they had no civilian clothing, so that deserters could be discovered very easily by the funny clothes they wear. When they left on the expedition, as you can see from Gary Lucy and Michael Haynes' paintings around here this week, then they've been working with the historians to do these work. They were in uniform. They would get in the dress uniform with all the fancy hat and so forth when they met an Indian tribe to do their welcoming ceremonies and show.
A person in a red vest and white shirt stands at a table displaying a banner listing multiple U.S. government agencies and departments. A projection screen is visible in the background, and papers are scattered on the table surface.
The drill and so forth. Their normal fatigues would be to shed the coat, shed the roach, but keep the hat on. Gentlemen in those days always wore a hat. That wasn't until President Kennedy came along that men stopped wearing hats, I believe. But they wore the uniforms until they wore out, and the journals say that they took the uniforms, took them apart, and used those for patterns for the buckskin clothing that they had. So if you look at the St. Menem portrait of Lewis very closely, you can see that it's leather, but it's military cut. It even has the welt down the side, which in the original, being infantry, would have been blue. But it's leather with the way it's cut is all very military. And talking to Steve Alley this week from the Frontier History Museum, he said that some of the captains were rather, pardon the modern term, anal, but they would make the men take their pants apart periodically and bleach them and then sew them back together again. So they were used to taking apart and putting together clothing, something I wouldn't want to do. The other funny thing is that I've noticed is the pants at the time were white. The regulation after Lewis and Clark got changed, so they went back to blue pants. I'd like to think that somebody talked to the quartermaster general after going across the country and back and said, whoever came up with the idea of white pants for the Army is nuts. Because it's very hard. keep these things clean, and if you're trying to show off every time you meet a new Indian nation, and I'm sure they had to keep their clothing clean. In fact, the regulation at the time was that they had to clean up every 3 days. I'm not a very good soldier, and I still have my beard, but if I were to march with Steve Alley's crew, I would have to shave, because he insists, and Bob Moore now from the Park Service insists, that the men of the expedition were clean shaven. The men in those days, whether they were in the Army or not, were clean shaven. They did not go bearded. That came later in the 19th century. Yes? Is this place bugged? I'm with you. I enjoy having this argument with some of the Army historians, yes. I would think that after being away from civilization for 2 years, certain things wore out, like the razors, and certain things also wore out, like adherence to the regulations. But at times they fell back upon them.
A person wearing a red vest and white headband stands at a table draped with a black banner listing various U.S. government departments and agencies. A presentation screen is visible in the background.
If they needed them, it was a way of ensuring the success of the mission. We would say that the Army values from today, they didn't articulate them in those days, but they had them: loyalty, duty, those kinds of things. And because they had those kinds of values, it helped ensure the success of the mission. President Jefferson had tried to send several other non-military expeditions before, and they had all failed. Of course, it's a failure when you send somebody who turns out to be a spy for the Spanish anyway, but they were a failure. There was the question is how many people went. Yeah. And I work for the engineers. I don't have the head for the numbers.
One person said it was 40, and I heard that 30. I heard only one person died with ruptured tendons.
There is some controversy over the numbers, but generally speaking, about 50 total left Fort St. Louis and went up the river. When they got the first winter at Fort Mandan, in now North Dakota, many of the men were sent back. They never were intended to go the whole way. They were to take the keel boat back with the things they had collected, journals, letters from the first year, and also a couple of the soldiers that washed out, a couple of men who had deserted, been recaptured, and they were sent back. So counting Sacagawea and Toussaint Charbonneau, who were picked up at Fort Mandan, there was 31 who went to, and Slave York, Clark Slave York, 31 total.
And one died.
One man, Sergeant Floyd, died on the way up in what's today Iowa. Right. I don't have, that one's missing too? No. Here we go. Here's a good story I like telling. When Lewis was in Philadelphia, he was picking up uniform parts, because the regular Army soldiers that he recruited would already have their uniforms, but he was planning on getting some recruits. Captain Clark in the Louisville area picked up several recruits, which we now call the 9 young men from Kentucky. And not being already in the Army, they didn't already have clothes.
A person wearing a red vest and white headband stands at a table draped with a black banner listing various U.S. government departments and agencies. A projection screen is visible in the background.
So Captain Lewis, this is too small for most of you to see, but you can look at it later. He had special coats made in Philadelphia. Now the story is this coat here, the regular issue Army coat, cost 80 cents to make. in those days. The way it worked was every year the Quartermaster General would put out a contract saying, we want coats made, blue wool, here's the specs. And the contractors in New York and Philadelphia knew that in certain time we're going to get this call for making coats, and so they would go out and they'd buy up all the blue wool they could find in the United States, jack the price up, and then when the contract came out they say, well gee, we have to charge you $2.50 per coat. Quartermaster General got smart, so he went out earlier in the year, bought up all the blue wool. Then he issued the contract in two parts. One was to provide the wool, the other was to sew them together. Same thing happened, the guys come back, the contract bids came in and said, well, we'll provide it, but you know, we can't find blue wool, it's going to be expensive. And he says, no, I already have the blue wool, you just make the coats. So that's why this one was 80 cents. When Lewis decided to make special coats, he got this fine wool which is called drab, not the color, but we call this drab as a color now, but that's the finest English wool, and he had a tailor make them. It cost $2.50, I believe, per coat just for the tailoring, and it was something like $5 a yard for the material, which in 1803 is a lot of money. So that's why some of the men wore this uniform, some wore this uniform. They had the blue coveralls which came out of the stocks that were left over from previous, when the Army built up during President Adams' days. So there were 31, and they were dressed in various different ways, but they were wearing uniforms because one of the reasons they wore the uniform was to impress the Indians, that these weren't just another bunch of fur trappers going up the river. Yes?
Can you tell me, when you were gathering your recruits and they were talking amongst each other, kind of planning what would be going on, what would they have been talking about that they thought they would see as they got to the West?
What did they think they would see? Now this is all supposition, but I'm not a lawyer, so I can do that, right? Well, one thing, as we know from the letters, at least the officers thought they might find mastodon or mammoths, some of these giant elephant things that they'd seen bones in Indiana, Ohio area. So that's one thing. One thing they did not expect to see were great shining mountains. They expected that once they got near.
A person wearing a red vest and white head covering stands at a table draped with a black banner listing various U.S. government departments and agencies. A presentation screen is visible in the background.
The Pacific, they'd find another mountain ridge, very similar to this one over here. Piece of cake. They did not expect to see the Rocky Mountains. And I'm sure they did not expect to see great herds of bison and all this other wildlife that they did see. As we heard from Clay Jenkinson the other night, they had that theory that everything was balanced. So I would extend that on, that they just would expect to see more of what's already there. We do that ourselves. Until we get to a new place, we sort of, our expectations are based on what we already know. So until we get there, you either don't know what to expect or it's just more of the same. So there would have been a lot of surprises. I'm sure they expected to find lots of Indians. I don't think they expected the variety of Indians they did. They were used to Eastern Indians, and then they get to see all these different cultures and how different each tribe is one from another. And as a returned Peace Corps volunteer, my reading is there was a lot of culture shock going on. One reason they were anxious to get back was there was a lot of culture shock. They had gone native, so to speak, but they wanted to get back to civilization. But that's a good question. Do you have any ideas?
I guess I was just thinking that pretty much what you said about the mastodons, thinking that wasn't there also like a lost tribe of Jewish people that they anticipated finding over there?
Oh yes, there's actually two things they were looking for. One is the lost tribe of Israel, and the other is the lost tribe of the Welsh. Even up to our modern day, certain people in this country think that there's some Indian tribe out there descended from the lost tribe of Israel. But also there was a story that had gone around that Prince of Wales in the 13th century, I believe, had led many of his people, when the English were coming into Wales, he led them away in ships to the New World, where they disappeared. But the Europeans had this belief that they were still out here as a group, as a tribe somewhere. And there's some people who believe the Mandans are descended from the Welsh. And Jefferson had this idea that some of these tribes that he had heard about out west might have been descended from the Welsh, and that's one reason he asked Lewis to find out as much as he could about the Indians. He actually had a questionnaire that for each tribe they were to fill out, and included words. They were to go in and do the vocabulary, English to Mandan, English to Shoshone.
A person wearing a red and dark jacket and white headwear stands at a table draped with a black banner listing various U.S. government departments and agencies. A presentation screen is visible in the background.
And so that the linguists back in the United States and Europe could take these words and see if they were related to Welsh or any other language. I don't think that's been followed up that well, at least it wasn't then, but if you ever get a chance to read Rhonda's book about Lewis and Clark among the Indians, he goes into that quite a bit. I think it's fascinating. Another question up here to run with the mic.
Oh, okay. Well, this isn't so much about the expedition, but come to the present and as far as in the future, with the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Is it actually starting here? I mean, right here in Charlottesville?
This is it. Don't blink, you miss it.
It didn't start before. We're starting right in this, locality.
I think I'm losing the mic. That's all right.
With all the history
I'm good?
and everything
all right.
going over it.
The bicentennial itself officially begins tomorrow up on the mountain. But this whole week of events is the kickoff event for the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial.
When Jefferson sent the official letter, was it to Congress?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's why this is all secret, It was an official letter to Congress saying, I'm going to send this expedition, please appropriate $2,500. Have you heard of cost overruns? And by the way, we plan on taking 12 men. Remember I said they took 50 or 51? They're still arguing about a couple of the guys. So the original plan Jefferson and Lewis were talking about is, I think we can do this with 12. When Clark came in the picture, he said, well, we're going to need carpenters and boatsmen and all these people we talked about earlier with these special skills, and the numbers went up.
Was it May the 14th as far as the next year, 1804? Is that when they started?
Oh, we're going to get in some, this is good, we'll get in some controversy here. From those of us in the...
Right after, the letter and everything.
It depends on where you're from, where it started. Okay? If you're from the Louisville, Clarksville area, it started, what was it, August 1803, whenever they're going to do their signature event later this year. If you're from St. Louis area, it didn't start until May of 1804. It's a matter of opinion.
Well, how come people differ?
Lewis wrote in his journal, when he left Pittsburgh, my journey begins here. So there's Pittsburgh's claim. The whole event started here when Jefferson wrote the letter to Congress. Lewis and Clark came.
A person wearing a red vest over dark clothing and a white head covering stands at a table with a black banner listing various U.S. government departments and agencies. Another person sits in the lower left corner.
Together first met in the Clarksville, Louisville area, the Great Falls of the Ohio. So there's their argument. Some of the men, a few of the men, Lewis brought with him from Pittsburgh. Many of the men joined with Clark. Others were recruited out of Fort Massac, Fort Kaskaskia. One thing I didn't mention, this character I portray as a recruiter, of course, is fictional. I usually do this in New England. Several of the men of the expedition came from New England, so I try to bring in the fact that there are ties from New England to this whole thing. George Drouillet, who's somebody who's been roaming around here earlier today, but he was sent from Kaskaskia down to Southwest Fort in Tennessee to recruit other men. So there were recruiters sent out. So these men all finally came together and trained at Camp Wood or Camp Dubois, now in Illinois, across from the mouth of the Missouri River. So you could say the expedition started in St. Louis. Those of us from the east look on the map and say, where's the line from Pittsburgh on the map? But the Park Service, by legislation, their trail, so to speak, starts in St. Louis and goes west. Although now it has certain spots that are part of the trail in the east, like Louisville and Monticello, I believe. There's a couple spots. Yes, the young lady here with the horses.
Okay, what is your opinion about Lewis's death?
Oh, we're really getting into controversy. Do you have an opinion? Well, first of all, are you from Tennessee? Is there anybody here from Tennessee? Well, I got to be careful then. You don't have an opinion. Does everybody know the story of Lewis's death, or do I have to repeat that? Right, Lewis died in 1809 after he became governor of the Upper Louisiana Territory. He was in trouble because he had certain political enemies. Remember I said there were cost overruns from his expedition? New administration came. Are you pointing to this tent? You can't, right. You know, I'm from Massachusetts. Anybody here heard of the Big Dig? That would be the modern equivalent of Lewis and Clark's cost overrun. You know, it's fun to be out of character.
It's a little more efficient, isn't it, being out of character? You don't have to pretend not to know.
Right. Well, actually, this is my usual character, being cynical, so we'll get into... What was the question? Oh, Lewis's death. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, Lewis died. He was going from St. Louis back to Washington to explain some of these bills that were still coming in from his expedition, and probably some of his bills from being governor in St. Louis. Also, former President Jefferson was still...
A person wearing a red jacket and white pants stands at a table draped with a black banner listing multiple U.S. government departments and agencies. A presentation screen is visible in the background.
Saying, where's the journals? You promised you'd get them published, so he was feeling under the weather, and Lewis had other problems. He had a hard time readjusting back to civilization, I understand. When he got to a place in Tennessee called, amongst other things, Grinder's Stand, a gunshot rang out, and he was found dying, and soon died. He was despondent. There is a certain element of people, mostly who live in Tennessee, who believe he was murdered. I believe every historian in the world who isn't based in Tennessee believes he committed suicide. His good friend and, as it turned out, executor, William Clark, believed he committed suicide because he suffered from melancholy all his life. That's another way, what we would say depression. I've talked to people who say, yes, my wife, I haven't talked to the psychologist myself, but secondhand I hear that the psychologists say he had all the symptoms of someone who would commit suicide. President Jefferson believed he committed suicide. But people who commit suicide lack, by definition, good moral character. And you cannot name a county after someone who lacks moral character. So a couple decades later, when the state of Tennessee decided to rename the county he died in, Lewis County, according to historians I've read, that's when this story of him being murdered for his money, which he didn't have anyway, came up. So was I diplomatic enough in what I think happened to Captain Lewis?
Were there others that were on the trip that had the same kind of problem readjusting to life after the expedition?
Everybody heard the question. I had a gentleman that today, when I was wearing my other uniform here, came up to me and it said his last name is Goodrich. There was a gentleman on the party by the name of Silas Goodrich, and this gentleman says, I'm trying to find out if I'm related to him, but I can't. What can you tell me? And he proceeded to tell me everything he knew about Silas Goodrich, which was exactly everything I know about Silas Goodrich, because it's everything that's in Clark's book, The Men of Lewis and Clark Expedition, written, in the 1960s? And it's also